and in a flash of lightning, I saw her standing down there after midnight. So I walked down there and was standing behind her when there was a really close flash of lightning and a roll of thunder, and she backed up right into me.
You're watching the Spotlight Network, starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're sharing a remarkable true story of love, faith, and miracles. The name of the book? Lightning and Thunder, and it's written by a terrific author, one of my favorite guests. His name is Albert L. Clark. This deeply moving memoir recounts a lifelong love affair that began with fate and thrived through 45 years of marriage, filled with divine coincidences and unforgettable experiences, from love at first sight to miraculous signs that followed even after his wife's passing. This is a story that will touch hearts and inspire hope. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing and beautiful and heartfelt book. The links are below this interview. Albert, great to see you. Welcome back to Spotlight.
Oh, good to see you again too. We've talked several times, so
Yes, and every time has been enchanting. So I'm looking forward to talking to you again today about your incredible love story that began when you were quite young, and it was love at first sight. Tell us about that chance encounter.
okay. Well, my parents had taken me to Disneyland, California, shortly after it opened, and her parents had taken her from Wisconsin to Disneyland, California on the same day. I had a younger brother that was only 4 years old, so my parents stayed with him, and I had roam of the park. So I was walking through the park, and I was approaching a ride there that I saw this girl that was under 4 feet tall, and I figured she was probably about 9 years old, and but I fell in love with her immediately, and I was only 12, so uh, who knows? Anyway, she was arguing with her older brother that she wanted to go on the ride, and he said, "I'm not going to take you on that childish ride." I was close enough to hear the conversation, but I didn't know her name. I didn't know where she was from, but her brother was wearing an Arkansas t-shirt. So I assumed she was from Arkansas. That was wrong. They were from Wisconsin. Anyway, so I lost a big crowd of people came by and they were swept away in the crowd. And I tried following to try to find out her name and where she was from, but the crowd swept her up, and I kept seeing her blonde hair next to a tall brother, but I couldn't catch up with them. And then finally, after about 15 minutes, they totally disappeared and had no idea where they went. So I went on about my life naturally. I graduated from college, went to pilot training in the Air Force, went to change careers into logistics, munitions because of circumstances. And actually, President Johnson assigned me to Army Depot to figure out the bomb shortage during the Vietnam War, and I figured that out. So next assignment, I went to Southeast Asia, and coming back from the Vietnam War, I was able to select whatever base I wanted. So I selected an Arkansas base because I figured she was from Arkansas. So I moved into this apartment house in Blytheville, Arkansas, and there were uh, two girls that immediately came after me because, gee, I was an Air Force captain. I was single. They were college educated, and they were very familiar with the military because they had parties, and it was largely populated by military, being single. And girls came all the way from Memphis, Tennessee, which was 68 miles an hour, 68 miles away, just to go to the parties. And but I didn't meet the third girl. And there was a few weeks later, I was out on the balcony. It was two-story building with a balcony that runs the entire length of the apartment house. And in a lightning storm, I saw this third girl that was college educated and single. And in a flash of lightning, I saw her standing down there after midnight. So I walked down there and was standing behind her when there was a really close flash of lightning and a roll of thunder, and she backed up right into me. And she said, "Excuse me, I didn't see you standing there." And I said, "Well, you like lightning, I like lightning, let's get married." She said, "What?" Because in that flash of lightning, I recognized her as a girl I saw when I was 12 years old and instantly fell in love, but had other girlfriends and some pretty serious girlfriends along the way. But I've been searching for her the whole time, and now I'm in Arkansas, where I thought she was from originally, and there she was. So she said, "What did you say?" And I said, "You heard me." I said, "You like lightning, I like lightning, let's get married." So she went into her apartment and locked the door. 2 weeks later, she had one of those singles parties. He went out and bought a small color television, which was big in those days, like maybe a 15-inch color television, and the only color television in the entire apartment complex. So she invited all of the singles and all of the young marrieds that were living in the apartment building and me. And I asked her if there was anything I could do, and she said, "Well, I could use you to go out to the Class 6 store, which is a tax-free alcohol store for military, and get some alcohol for the party." So I went out and I got vodka and whiskey and all that stuff, and I brought it to her apartment early. And her apartment was poor girl. I didn't know she was rich, but she didn't take money from her parents. But her sofa was a aluminum camping cot with a big piece of foam rubber on it, and she covered it with a matching material and made pillows for it for the back and the arms. And her coffee table was a wooden fruit crate with a piece of plywood on top and covered with the same fabric. And the TV was sitting on a TV tray across the room from it. And so anyway, I helped her get set up for the party. And she door was wide open. I said, "I'm your friendly bootlegger bringing you alcohol." So, which is a joke because bootleggers used to sell alcohol when it was illegal to sell alcohol. So in some states, including Arkansas. And so anyway, during the party, the other two girls I'd met in the apartment building said, "You're not watching the show," which was Miss America. And I said, "You're right." I said, all you're doing is watching Carolyn." "You're right." So anyway, it progressed. We got married. Went over to Europe. Uh, I couldn't go. I had a very high security clearance, but not high enough to know the German war plans. So I had to wait for my up security clearance, the high top secret clearance to come through, so I couldn't go to work. So we hopped in the car that a friend at the airbase helped me buy cheap, which was a Porsche 911, which weren't that expensive back then.
Wow.
And so we drove over to Paris, and there the miracles started happening. I had no idea where we were. We were on this busy street with 6 lanes of traffic on a 4-lane street. And I just needed to get off and try to find a street sign to figure out where we were, to figure out how to get to the hotel. So I tried to turn, and twice I was cut off and I couldn't turn. So the third street, I managed to make a turn and almost immediately saw an underground parking garage. So I said, "Let's park the car and I'll go walk to a street, to a corner and find a street sign to figure out where we are so I can figure out how to get to the hotel." And so I did, and we parked the car in a parking spot right by the stairs to get up to the main level of the street. And we walked up, and there was a hotel.
Amazing.
How does that happen?
Yeah,
I had no
exactly.
idea
There's
where
so
we were.
many amazing things to the story. How does any of it happen? I guess it's fate, destiny, divine intervention, right?
Right. And I told a lot of the story before. I'm going to tell a little bit about my wife. We
Sure.
moved over to Germany, and the movie theater had been shut down because the ceiling tiles were falling down, the chairs were broken, the cameras were not working, and we had been taken off the motion picture line, and we had no television, no American television, and no American radio even. So we had to listen to records or not have any entertainment whatsoever. And she took it upon herself to organize, and she hadn't been there that long, but she immediately organized a team of other wives and their husbands, and they redid the movie theater. And while she was doing that, I took the projectors down to one of the big cities to get them overhauled to make sure that they were in good working condition, and came back. And then I made arrangements with other army units around to what it amounts to is all of these little army anti-aircraft batteries and so forth were every one of us was sending a truck daily to our support base to pick up the mail and things that we just had to have, parts for radios and so forth. And we arranged so instead of all of us going to the main base, we took turns. So each base would go and make their turn. So when we went, we picked up the movies for everybody, and we dropped, and then they made the round, and they dropped a movie off at each of the bases as they went along. So instead of having one movie a week, we ended up with a movie every day, and all of our units had a movie every day, because every time somebody would go to the support base, they would pick up the new movies and move all the movies one base to the right all the way around the route.
Wow.
So and it took turns, so it actually saved a lot of time and fuel and everything else for us to do that. And every single one of our bases had a new movie every day. So after a couple of years, the Germans wanted to take over our club, which is like an officers club, except it was an all ranks club, military, civilian, military officers and enlisted people all went to the same club. But our club had dropped to the point we no longer had USO shows. They wouldn't come anymore because basically the club was six senior NCOs that went there and drank and played pool, and nobody went to the club. So the Germans wanted to take it over as a training facility, which was closer to their enlisted training people. And there was an old club that they weren't using anymore that was a really nice building, but it was outside the gate. That's perfect, because if we could take that over and refurb it and start getting entertainment, maybe we could attract people from other bases, and they wouldn't have to go onto the base to go get there. So again, my wife, rounded up her minions, and they cleaned it up. It hadn't been used in like 10 years. So we cleaned it all up and repainted things that needed to be repainted. And we got old tables and chairs from closed down clubs that they were getting ready to throw them away. So we sent a truck around and picked up all the used tables from several other bases, brought them there, and then put tablecloths over them so people wouldn't realize they're old scarred wooden tables. And we managed to, again, the women recovered some of the chairs. So we had, and instead of having just an occasional USO club, a USO show, we actually got so popular that there would be an American rock group that would be in Frankfurt, Germany, on live TV with 25,000 people watching on Friday night. On Saturday night, they were at our club. We only had 100 people stationed at the base. Wow. But we packed up. We had, and we could seat 300 in our new club that we got from the Germans. And so we had people coming from all the other bases, and some of the German officers would come and to see our shows. And we would have a show about once a month that had been on national TV that week.
Amazing.
And also I hired people out of the dining hall, which another one of my additional duties was, because I was logistics officer, so I was in charge of anything that wasn't directly military. And some military things too, of course. That's my main job. But anyway, I was in charge of all of the facilities. So I hired some dining hall cooks to cook dinners at the club, and that got to be very popular. We had a crowd every night, and we invited the Germans and the German officers to come over because most of those had been in school in the United States for 3 years, along with their wives, and so they liked sitting down to a good steak. And
Amazing.
and
Amazing.
we and so we had steak dinners 2 or 3 times a week, and the club was packed. and
Amazing. That's wonderful. You've had
but
so much great fortune in your life. Like I said, so much divine intervention, fate or destiny. Um, and the miracles just seem to just happen, the from the steak dinners to the movies to that chance encounter at Disneyland, and then of course in Arkansas as well. What do you attribute all of those great celestial lineups in your life that everything seemed to work out just perfectly?
I think I was destined to marry her. Uh, yeah, it had to be God's intervention. Now, I'm not, a born again Christian or anything like that. I go to church, uh, and not every week even, but uh, I definitely believe in God, and God has given me so many signs that are, if you read the book, they're totally unbelievable. Um, yeah, I say I met her in a lightning storm, and 45 years later, she had an allergic reaction to cut flowers in the grocery store. I took her to the hospital for an EpiPen and a breathing treatment, and her medical records were wrong, and that they said that she was bedfast for 9 years with a home nurse and oxygen. We were on a cruise previous week, and, and on Saturday night we danced until the band quit at midnight on the cruise ship. On Sunday we went to a Broadway musical in Tampa, Florida. On Monday she was the maid of honor at a wedding on a dock in the little town we lived in, and on Friday, she walked into the grocery store and got trapped by people who didn't speak English in the flower aisle and had this allergic reaction to the cut flowers. I took her to the hospital and they put her on a breathing machine and killed her. Uh, anyway, she actually lived. They put her in a coma because she was fighting the breathing machine and would not listen to me. And wouldn't give her an epinephrine shot or anything. And 15 days later, uh, the uh, um, her oxygen levels started dropping, even though they'd taken her off the breathing machine because they said she was brain dead. And they took her off the oxygen, and she lived for another 48 hours, basically. And then I saw the oxygen level dropping, and her blood pressure starting to drop. And I stood up, gave her a kiss, and said, "That's all right, Carolyn. I'll see you in heaven." And she took breath. When she let out the last of the air, the entire hospital shook like an earthquake, and a lightning had hit the hospital with a big boom and knocked out all the electronics in the building except for battery powered life support. And 2 months later, when I went down to sell my house down there, they had an 18-wheeler generator sitting next to an 18-wheeler fuel truck, providing electrical power to the hospital. 2 months later, they still
Amazing.
hadn't repaired the internal part of what the lightning had done to the hospital. So
Amazing.
uh, on her headstones, I put double lightning bolts on the backside,
Mm,
and along with a short saying on the backside. Of course, front side is normal,
yeah,
birthday and so forth.
yeah,
Uh, and Then I wrote the book the next
yeah,
spring, and it's called Lightning and Thunder. I met her in a lightning storm, and she died with a roll of thunder.
yeah. Amazing. Amazing. It's an amazing journey. I'm so sorry that the hospital and the medical professionals failed you, and you lost your life because of it, because obviously you would have had many more happy years together. She was vibrant, healthy, strong, and you were dancing the night away just, hours before, days before. Um, it's such an incredible story, though, that you saw her in an amusement park at 12. And then years later, you're a Air Force captain and you're in Arkansas where you think she might live. And for some reason, she's there. What brought her to Arkansas? Did you ever find that? Obviously, you found that out. What was she doing, this Wisconsin girl doing in Arkansas?
Well, her parent, when she was about 15 years old, which is 3 years after I had seen her originally, uh, her parents sold their factory in Wisconsin. He was the largest employer in that county of Wisconsin. And he sold his factory, moved to Arkansas, about 7,000 acres of land, and brought some prize cattle from Nelson Rockefeller, and also bought a construction company with bulldozers and so forth. And so she was quite wealthy, but she wouldn't take money from her parents, which is why she looked like she was poor. And she couldn't have children, so she decided she would never ever get married because her husband would want to have children.
Mm.
Well, I said right away, I had a degree that I believed more in uh, circumstances rather than genetics as far as how kids would grow up. So I had no objection to adopting. And guys don't have a whole lot to do with that anyway. It's mainly the women that have to carry the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Uh, so when we came back from Germany, we it was right after Roe versus Wade, and rich and famous people were adopting handicapped kids from foreign countries because they couldn't adopt an American kid. So we just made an appointment with this very small adoption agency. No big adoption agents would even talk to us. So I found this small adoption agency working out of a little 2-bedroom house, and we just made an appointment with them to go down and talk to them about how adoption had changed while we were overseas. Hmm. And they said, well, we'd have to charge you a full fee. Well, what's that? Well, $500 for filling out the application, reviewing your application, doing a background investigation, doing home visits, attorney fees, and the court costs, $500. Oh, for $500, we'll come down and talk to you for a half hour. Is that okay? So we made an appointment to go down and talk to them. They made us fill out the paper because they said, if you haven't filled out the paperwork, we can't justify taking your $500. So we did. And then we went, that was in October. We went home for Christmas. When we came back in January, they called us immediately and said, guess what? Would you like to come down and see a 3-week-old baby boy? What?
Wow.
It's only been a couple of months. So we went down there, and there's a blizzard predicted for upstate New York. So they let us take him home when he's only 3 weeks old.
Amazing.
And we dropped by a Sears Roebuck. We bought everything you could imagine because we figured that if anything, it'd be years before we could adopt. And being in the military, I probably wasn't going to be anywhere long enough to adopt. So we hadn't prepared anything. So we bought everything you could imagine at the Sears Roebuck that had no customers because it was already starting to snow from the blizzard coming in. And we packed everything on our car and took it home and got it all set up. And
amazing.
Then 6 years later, we decided that rather than have an only child, why don't we see if we can't adopt a little girl this time? I found that same agency in Ohio now, not New York, but in Ohio now. Military moved me. So we found that same agency. We explained. About 3 months later, we had a 2-month-old baby girl.
Wow.
Both of them are brown-haired, blue-eyed. To give you an idea how close they are, they last fall they went to the live stage performance of the Grinch, wearing Grinch shirts. And the explanation for that is our son was born on the 21st of December, and he couldn't have a birthday party because people are either going out of town to visit or they just can't afford to buy Christmas present or birthday presents for a neighbor kid when they can't afford presents for their own kids at Christmas. So we were worried about our daughter would have a birthday in the middle of school year or whatever and have a great, glorious birthday party, right? Nope, she was born on the 24th of December.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
every year, and they're growing up, and they still do. At Christmas time, they give each other a Grinch present.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And that also feels like another miracle. You got two
Yeah,
children just when you want them within 3 months. Their birthdays are right around Christmas. You really have a life, as they said to George Bailey, it's a wonderful life, right?
yeah. Well, as the subtitle for the book, A Miracle Love Story,
Yeah.
and it was filled with miracles.
Yeah.
Um, everything we could go anywhere we wanted with no reservations, and we'd go to the place we wanted to stay, and they would have a cancellation. We didn't need reservations. Things would just open up however we wanted to. Uh,
Amazing.
uh, so it's a miracle. Yeah, a
Yeah,
little bit
absolutely.
more about my wife. She's 5'0", weighs 106 pounds. On the German base, she came in second place shooting clay pigeons against German officers. I
Amazing.
came in first place consistently, and she always came in second place. She was the only girl
Amazing.
shooting a shotgun.
Amazing.
Then we went to a riding stable in Germany, and they immediately, instead of being with the Americans trying to learn to ride, they put us with the German riding team that traveled all over Europe. And we'd been riding with them a couple of weeks, and they brought out this huge, biggest horse I have ever seen. It looked like a thoroughbred, but it was bigger than a Clydesdale. Uh,
Amazing.
and three of the Germans said, "I want to ride it." Well, two of them couldn't even get on the horse, and the third one managed to get on for about 2 seconds and got bucked off. So my wife says, "I'll ride it," and everybody got a big laugh. So she walks up to the horse and looks at it kind of strangely, and she had to jump a foot off the ground just to grab a hold of the leather hanging down from the saddle that holds the stirrup down below. And
Amazing.
the horse tried to go sideways, which got rid of two of the German riders when the horse went sideways. And somehow it just sort of flipped her onto the saddle.
Wow.
It was sort of amazing because there she is jumping up in the air a foot off the ground, or feet a foot off the ground, just to grab a hold of that leather coming down from the saddle. And all of a sudden she's sitting in the saddle while the horse is trying to and not let her get on. And then the horse tried bucking for about 8 seconds, and she was as stuck to that horse as the leather of the saddle.
Wow.
And from that point on, she didn't even use the reins. The horse followed her every command. If she wanted to go fast, she'd lean forward. If she wanted to stop, she'd lean back. If she wanted to stop in a hurry, she'd lay down in the saddle and the horse would slide to a stop.
Wow.
She'd go left, she'd lean left, go right, she'd go right. And the German owner of that horse and the riding stable and the captain of the German riding team wanted her to travel Europe riding that horse because nobody had ever seen a horse like that, and to see it totally controlled by her without even using reins, and
Amazing.
right in coordination with the rest of the team, at gallop and so forth. And one of their commands was aussitzen, which means get off the horse, basically. And
Mhm.
we'd be riding along in a line of horses at a gallop. He'd say "oust," and you put your leg over the saddle where you've got both legs on one side of the horse. And he'd say "sits," and you were supposed to stop the horse and stand beside it from a
Mm.
gallop.
Wow.
And where she had, I mean, it was a long ways down for her to hit the ground. And then she'd say "einsitzen," which means get on the horse, and she'd have to do her leap and somehow sort of levitate up to the saddle.
Amazing. Amazing.
And anyway, of course, she couldn't go because I couldn't go because I'm in the military. I can't leave my base and go traveling around Europe, but she isn't going to go without me. So we dropped out of the German riding team.
Amazing. Your life was touched with love. It was touched with miracles. It was touched by fate. It was touched by God's hand, no doubt. The name of the book we've been exploring today, it's a wonderful book. It's an amazing love story. It is stranger than fiction. yet so true, so heartfelt, so wondrous. Hollywood should take this story and make it into a movie because it would be a blockbuster. Love at first sight. Who doesn't love it? The name of the book is Lightning and Thunder. It is a heartfelt memoir of love, loss, and the miracles that connect us beyond this life. Albert, such a pleasure having you back on the show here today.
Well, I enjoy talking about my book anytime.
I enjoyed
uh,
talking to you about your book anytime and learning about your wondrous life. It was great chatting with you again today, so thank you so much. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.